Perhaps you've accidentally broken something into many pieces. Or maybe you've bent something into a different shape. Have you ever seen ice melting right in front of your eyes? Or have you ever noticed liquid water that turned to solid ice overnight? These are all examples of physical changes of matter. What exactly is a physical change? How do these changes occur? And what are some examples of physical changes? During the next few minutes, we're going to answer these questions and others as we explore physical changes. You've probably had the unfortunate experience of breaking something, like a glass or a plate. These are examples of physical changes. In a physical change, matter changes its appearance or form, but it's still the same kind of matter. This person is tearing this piece of paper into smaller and smaller pieces. You describe. How are the small pieces of paper different and yet similar to the big piece? The only difference between the small pieces of paper and the big piece is size. They're all still paper, regardless of size. This is an example of a physical change. A physical change can involve a change in size, shape, color, or appearance. But in a physical change, the actual makeup of the matter does not change. However, if fire were to burn the paper, it would undergo a big change. As you can see, the paper turns black and crumbly, and it's no longer paper. Instead, the paper has turned to something called ash. So instead of a physical change, the paper experienced a chemical change. In a chemical change, the actual makeup of matter is changed into a new and different type of matter. We just saw how making a large piece of matter into smaller pieces is an example of a physical change. What are some other examples of physical changes? You've probably played with clay or Play-Doh. While doing this, you've bent and molded the Play-Doh or clay into a different shape. The matter did not change chemically, but it did change physically. If you enjoy swimming in lakes and ponds, you know that sometimes the water feels warm, and at other times it feels cold. Temperature is another physical change. You easily can change the temperature of water coming out of the faucet by adjusting the hot and cold settings. Let's take a closer look at some of the other physical changes of water. Have you ever been ice skating? Maybe you've seen icicles hanging from a roof. You decide. What is ice? Ice is actually water that's frozen. When liquid water gets cold, below 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius, it changes from a liquid to a solid. Ice is solid water. Freezing is the process of liquid water changing to a solid. So, what happens when ice gets warm? That's right, it melts. Melting is the process of changing from a solid to a liquid. In the spring, the ice on frozen lakes melts. Likewise, when an ice cube is left on the counter, it melts. Freezing and melting are physical changes. Have you ever wondered where the water in puddles goes after a rainstorm? Maybe you've noticed that water left in a glass gradually disappears over several days. Where did this water go? The water went into the air as it changed from a liquid to a gas called water vapor. Evaporation is the process of a liquid changing to a gas. Have you ever noticed on a hot, humid day that the outside of a cold glass or a cold soda can gets wet? You decide. Where did this moisture come from? The moisture came from water vapor in the surrounding air. Sometimes when gases like water vapor cool, they become liquids. Condensation is the process of a gas changing to a liquid. Clouds form as a result of condensation. As water vapor in the air rises and cools, it changes to tiny water droplets that make up clouds. Evaporation and condensation are other examples of physical changes. During the past few minutes, we explored physical changes. We began by looking at some examples of physical changes. Next, some of the different types of physical changes were highlighted, including change in temperature, size, shape, and color. The interesting processes of freezing and melting were explored. Last, we took a look at how matter can physically change between liquids and gases in the process of evaporation and condensation. This wrapped up our fascinating investigation of physical changes. Fill in the correct word to complete the sentence. Number 1. Tearing paper into many pieces is a type of change. Number 2. Burning paper is a type of change. Number 3. Ice is actually frozen . Number 4. Is the process of ice changing to a liquid? And number 5. Occurs when a liquid changes to a gas.